"Sir, you need to leave now." The security guard's hand moved toward his radio as he stared down at the man sitting on the mall bench. Torn jacket, muddy boots, and a smell that made nearby shoppers wrinkle their noses. But what the guard didn't notice was the small group of men in civilian clothes watching from the food court, their eyes locked on the scene unfolding below. Welcome to Warrior Voice. Before we continue this emotional story, tell us in the comments from which city in the world you are watching this video today. And if you think stories like this need to be heard, hit that subscribe button to support the channel. We're growing every day, and I sincerely thank you for being a part of it. Oakwood Shopping Mall stood as a 3-story monument to suburban American prosperity, its gleaming storefronts and perfectly manicured landscaping welcoming thousands of visitors each day. The polished floors reflected the soft glow of designer lighting, while the gentle murmur of conversation mixed with the distant sound of children playing in the arcade. Saturday afternoons brought the usual crowd. Families browsing weekend sales, teenagers clustering around the gaming store, elderly couples sharing coffee, and people watching from the central seating area. Marcus Thompson sat on one of those benches, but he didn't fit the typical demographic. At 42, his tall frame carried the remnants of military bearing, though his shoulders now seemed to bow under an invisible weight. His faded military jacket hung loose on his frame, pulled tight against the March chill that seemed to penetrate even the mall's heated interior. His worn combat boots bore the stains of last night's rain, evidence of another evening spent walking the streets because Marcus Thompson was homeless. 6 months ago, life had been different. A modest apartment, steady construction work, and weekly therapy sessions for his PTSD formed the stable routine he'd built after discharge. But then came the cascade of problems. Job loss, missed rent payments, and finally eviction. The VA system had somehow misplaced his file in a bureaucratic maze, and Marcus found himself living in his truck until that was repossessed. Now the streets were home. But today wasn't just about finding warmth. Today was special. Today was Danny's birthday. Danny Thompson, 13 years old today, lived with Marcus's ex-wife Janet in their suburban home 40 minutes away. The divorce had come after Marcus's 3rd deployment to Afghanistan, when trauma and adjustment issues had gradually eroded their marriage beyond repair. Janet had rebuilt her life with a new husband and a stable home, while Marcus had simply disappeared into the margins of society. Every year on Danny's birthday, Marcus made the same pilgrimage. He would come to Oakwood Mall, specifically to the toy store on the 2nd level, and he would stand at the window displays, imagining what his son might like. He couldn't buy anything. His pockets held maybe $3 in change, but he could dream. This year followed the same pattern. He'd been here for 3 hours, sitting quietly on the bench, occasionally walking to peer into storefront windows before returning to his spot. The people around him had begun to notice. A mother pulled her child closer as they passed. A security guard tagged him as a potential problem. Store managers exchanged concerned glances, but Marcus remained oblivious to their attention, lost in thoughts of Danny turning 13, wondering what kind of young man his son was becoming. "Sir," Security Supervisor Dave Patterson approached with practiced authority. "What are you doing here?" Marcus looked up with tired eyes. "Just sitting." "How long have you been here?" "I don't know, a while." Dave Patterson was a 48-year-old security veteran with 20 years of experience in problem management. To him, Marcus represented a textbook case, homeless individual loitering without purchasing intent. "You haven't bought anything. This seating area is for customers." "I'm not bothering anyone," Marcus replied quietly. "Customers are complaining about the smell and your general appearance." Marcus pulled his jacket tighter. 5 more minutes, then I'll go." "No, sir. You'll leave now." As this conversation continued, scattered throughout the mall at various strategic positions, several men in civilian clothes monitored the situation with growing tension. The man sipping coffee in the food court, the broad-shouldered figure browsing magazines in the bookstore, the young man having a phone conversation outside the electronics store. They all shared certain characteristics: military bearing, alert eyes, and increasing concern about what they were witnessing, because they recognized Marcus Thompson. Staff Sergeant Marcus Tank Thompson. 2nd Marine Division, 2/3 Battalion, 3 tours in Afghanistan, 2 Bronze Stars, 1 Purple Heart. The man who, on March 28, 2019, in Helmand Province, had single-handedly evacuated 12 wounded Marines under intense enemy fire. "Sir, I'm telling you for the last time," Patterson's voice hardened. "Either you leave voluntarily or we'll escort you out." Marcus slowly stood, his height matching Patterson's, but his posture still carrying traces of military discipline despite months of hardship. "I just wanted to sit here a little longer." "Not happening." Patterson reached for his radio. "I need backup, 2nd floor, main area." That's when the man from the food court stood up. Gunnery Sergeant Mike Rodriguez, retired, owner of a local flower shop, Marcus's former squad leader, then the man from the bookstore. Corporal James Big Jim Washington, retired truck driver, one of the men whose life Marcus had saved, followed by the young man from electronics, Corporal Tony Mendez, currently active duty, on leave, Marcus's former sergeant. And then, from every corner of the shopping mall, men began emerging. One by one, two by two, converging slowly but deliberately. When Patterson's backup call was answered, 2 additional security guards arrived. But as they approached, they failed to notice the growing crowd of civilian-dressed men positioning themselves around the perimeter. "What's the problem?" the arriving guard asked. "This individual is disturbing customers. We need to remove him." Marcus raised his hands in a peaceful gesture. "I won't cause trouble. There is no just." Patterson cut him off. "You're leaving." Rodriguez moved closer but didn't intervene yet. He was assessing the situation. "Tank," he said quietly. Marcus turned his head and saw Rodriguez. For a moment, confusion flickered in his eyes, then recognition. "Rodriguez?" "Yeah, brother. It's me." Patterson noticed the recognition between the 2 men but dismissed it. "Sir, you can meet your friend somewhere else. You can't stay here." Rodriguez turned to Patterson. "What did this man do?" "He's disturbing our customers. It's obvious he's not planning to purchase anything." "How can you be sure?" "Look, sir, this doesn't concern you. Please don't interfere." Big Jim Washington approached, his imposing frame straightening to full height. "What's his problem?" Patterson now found himself facing 3 men, but still believed he maintained control of the situation. "The security of this establishment is my responsibility. This person needs to leave." "For what reason?" Tony Mendez asked as the group expanded. "Customer complaints, inappropriate appearance, no purchasing intent." Just then, more men continued arriving from different levels of the mall. Each from different age groups, different races, different professions, but all sharing the same characteristics: military bearing and protective stance toward Marcus Thompson. Patterson's radio crackled. "Dave, what's your status?" "Under control," he said, though his voice carried less certainty than before, because he was now surrounded by 20 men. And the number kept growing. Marcus's eyes began to moisten. Faces he hadn't seen in 6 months, men whose lives had once been intertwined with his, now stood here beside him. "Guys," he said softly, "this isn't necessary. I'll leave." "No, Tank," Rodriguez replied firmly. "You're not going anywhere." Patterson spoke into his radio again. "Control, I need additional security. Situation could escalate." Big Jim stepped forward. "Situation's already under control, friend. You just don't realize it yet." "Who are you people?" Patterson demanded. "We're his brothers," Tony Mendez answered calmly but firmly. "Not blood brothers," Rodriguez added. "Something stronger." Patterson was genuinely concerned now. The count approached 40 and continued rising. Other mall customers began noticing the unusual gathering. Some started recording with their phones. "Look, gentlemen," Patterson raised his hands. "I'm just doing my job. This man," a sharp voice interrupted, "is Staff Sergeant Marcus Thompson, United States Marine Corps." The speaker was a distinguished man in his 60s with silver hair and ramrod-straight posture, retired Colonel William Hayes. "And you," Hayes continued, "the men trying to remove him are looking at the people who owe him their lives." Patterson was confused. "Owe him their lives? What do you mean?" Rodriguez stepped forward. "March 28, 2019, Helmand Province, Taliban ambush. Our convoy was hit. Tank went into that kill zone alone, under enemy fire, 12 separate times, and brought every one of us out." Big Jim added, "I was one of those 12, shot in the leg, couldn't move. Tank carried me on his back." Tony Mendez, "Me too. Shrapnel blinded me temporarily. Tank guided me to safety. Hayes, as a result of this operation, Marcus Thompson received his second Bronze Star Medal. Patterson and the other security guards looked around in bewilderment. There were now 50 men, all standing quietly, respectfully. Tears began streaming down Marcus's face. "Guys, you didn't need to do this." "Yes, we did," Rodriguez said definitively, "because you never left any of us behind." Colonel Hayes turned to Patterson. "This man has been living on the streets for 6 months, because the system failed him, but he never failed any of us." "I didn't know," Patterson said, barely breathing. "Now you know," Hayes replied. "And now I want you to know something else. This man will stay here as long as he wants." The mall manager, John Davidson, noticed the situation and came running over. A man in his 50s wearing a business suit, accustomed to having everything under control. But right now, control was not in his hands. "What's happening here?" he asked, out of breath. Hayes introduced himself. "Retired Colonel William Hayes, and your security team just tried to remove a war hero from your shopping center." Davidson's face went pale. He immediately understood the full scope of the situation. 50 Marines gathered in the shopping mall, potential for viral social media coverage, PR disaster. All of it. "I apologize," he said immediately. "This is a terrible misunderstanding. Mr. Thompson, please forgive us." Marcus was still in tears but managed to speak. "I just wanted to look at toys for my son's birthday." "Your son?" Davidson asked. "Danny, he's turning 13 today. Every year I come here and imagine what toys I could get him." "Which toys?" Davidson asked. Marcus hesitated, then pointed to the second-floor display window. "That Lego set. Boys like soldiers, but I can't afford it." Davidson immediately pulled out his phone and called the toy store manager. "Janet?" "John Davidson. That big Lego set on the second floor. Yes, the military base set. Bring it down immediately and gift wrap it. No charge." "No," Marcus shook his head. "I can't accept." "Yes, you can," Rodriguez said firmly. "Because you deserve it." Hayes added, "And not just today. This mall is your home anytime you want to come. Always." Davidson agreed, "Absolutely. And Mr. Thompson, I'd like to discuss having you contribute to our security team's training program about how to handle situations like this." Patterson stepped forward, bowing his head. "Sir, I apologize. I didn't know." Marcus looked at him, not with anger in his eyes, but with sadness. "How could you know? I'm just another homeless person." "No," Big Jim said in his powerful voice. "You were never just another anybody. You're Tank Thompson." The crowd began to applaud. The first clap came from a child, then his mother, then everyone around. The shopping mall filled with applause that lasted for minutes. Marcus looked around. 50 Marine brothers applauding civilians, a wrapped Lego set, and a sudden understanding. Maybe he wasn't lost. Maybe he had just forgotten where he belonged. Rodriguez approached him. "Tank, dinner's at home tonight. Linda's been expecting you for 6 months." I'm not ready." "Nobody's asking you to be ready," Tony Mendez said. "Just show up." Hayes and Tank, come with me tomorrow. We're going to the VA to straighten out your file. This system failed you, but we won't. Marcus wiped his tears and smiled for the first time in 6 months. "Guys, thank you." "We should be thanking you," Rodriguez replied. "You brought us home. Now it's our turn." The toy store manager brought the wrapped Lego set. When Marcus took it, he noticed his hands were shaking. "Would you like to see Danny?" Davidson asked. "If you want, we can call him here." Marcus hesitated. He wouldn't want to see me like this." "Tank," Colonel Hayes said calmly but firmly, "your son is a hero's son. He deserves to know that." Davidson pulled out his phone. "If you'll permit me, I can call Danny's mother and explain the situation." Marcus thought, then nodded. "Okay." The phone conversation was brief. Davidson hung up with a smile. "They'll be here in 20 minutes. While waiting, the Marines formed a semicircle around Marcus. They talked, shared memories, laughed. For the first time in 6 months, Marcus felt like he had come home. When Janet and Danny arrived, the shock of seeing Marcus surrounded by 50 Marines was the first expression on their faces. Danny ran over. "Dad!" Marcus hugged his son and handed him the Lego set. "Happy birthday, son." "Dad, you're a hero," Danny said excitedly. "Mom told me." Janet approached, her eyes moist. "Marcus, I didn't know about this situation." Rodriguez intervened. "Ma'am, we lost track of your husband for 6 months, but we found him now." Hayes turned to Janet. "Does Danny know what kind of man his father is?" Yes, Janet replied. He knows now. Marcus looked at his son. Danny, Dad's been going through some difficult times, but things will be better now. Will you come to our house? Danny asked. Marcus looked at Janet, who nodded. You always have a place, Marcus. I need to take care of a few things first, Marcus replied. But yes, I'll come. Tank, new beginnings are never easy, but they're done together. Colonel Hayes, tomorrow at 9 at the VA office, we're fixing your file. Davidson, and if you'd like to start work Monday, the security consultant position is yours. Marcus looked around, his son, his ex-wife, 50 Marine brothers, and new opportunities. For the first time in 6 months, the future looked hopeful. Thank you, he said, all of you. I had forgotten what home was. Big Jim patted his shoulder. Home isn't a place, Tank. Home is family, and you're part of our family. The shopping mall slowly returned to normal, but everyone who was there that day would never forget. Videos went viral on social media, news stories were made, and Marcus Thompson's story was heard nationwide. But most importantly, a man came home. 6 months later, Marcus was no longer homeless. With Rodriguez's help, he had rented a small apartment, received his overdue payments from the VA, and was working as a security consultant at Oakwood Mall. He saw Danny every weekend, attended therapy regularly, and most importantly, he wasn't alone. Every Saturday afternoon, he sat on the same bench, but no longer as a homeless man, but as a father waiting for his son. And every time, just like before, a few Marine friends kept him company. Because some families aren't built by blood, but on the battlefield, and those families never leave a member behind. This story was brought to you by Warrior Voice. Before we leave you today, here's our question. Have you ever known someone who did something worthy of recognition, but remained invisible? Tell us in the comments what they meant to you and how you remember them. And if you think stories like this need to be heard, hit that subscribe button to support the channel. We'll see you in the next one.